We have arrived at the moment of interruption. The adjournment debate for this evening was chosen earlier. Be it resolved that members of this House recognize the significance of the signing this past Friday of a historic agreement that will improve educational opportunities for Nova Scotia's Mi'kmaq students. The Chair recognizes the Honourable, the Acting Minister of Education.
Well, thank you, Speaker, very much. And I'm really pleased to be able to stand tonight in this House to talk for a few moments about what was a very proud time for all in this province. And I was also, on Friday, Mr. Speaker, I was honored to fill in for the Minister of Education to put my name on a historic education agreement on behalf of the province. And I'd like to, on behalf of the Minister of Education and her team, and like to salute the efforts of people such as Chief Deborah Robinson, Chief Terry Paul, members of the Ginamak Niue, especially John Donnelly, who was the lead negotiator for MK, and Eleanor Bernard, who is the executive director of MK, and of course the hardworking people in the Department of Education. These people are all dedicated to making a difference for future generations by committing themselves to improving educational opportunities for all Mi'kmaq students who attend public schools in Nova Scotia. As I said on Friday, Mr. Speaker, providing quality education to all children is a sacred trust. And this agreement will open a new era of cooperation and collaboration between the Department of Education and the school boards of the province and the Mi'kmaq people to help us collectively work more effectively to meet the educational needs of Mi'kmaq students. And I'm proud to say, Mr. Speaker, that thanks to the spirit of cooperation, an agreement which is unique within Canada has been forged. And it will take Nova Scotia further than any other province to address the needs of on-reserve students who attend our public schools, notably through the opportunity of providing more services in consultation with all our partners. Now, Mr. Speaker, these enhancements will also benefit hundreds of off-reserve students too. This agreement, which was 2 years in the making, actually, Mr. Speaker, the seeds of this agreement were sown back in the time when I was Education Minister, although the actual negotiations and how it was put into place occurred when my colleague, the present Minister of Education, she made it work in conjunction with those who were representing the school boards and the MK. And what it does is it establishes a formal reporting structure between our regional school boards and MK on student achievement, attendance, discipline, and a range of other valuable education measures. It's extremely important that families and communities know how their students are performing in school, and this mechanism will help enable that. This agreement also helps to better involve and engage parents and the entire Mi'kmaq communities in the public school system. It creates a framework so that bands and families can hold the public school system more accountable for the services they have contracted from the department and our boards. Just like all other Nova Scotians, the Mi'kmaq people want to increase the educational achievement of their children. They want to know how well their children are doing in school. And they also want their children to have an increased knowledge and understanding of Mi'kmaq culture, language, and history. Now, our Minister of Education cares deeply about all of our students, and I know that she will, along with all government, make sure that we meet our obligations as outlined in this agreement. Now, I also know just how much the wishes that she were there for that groundbreaking moment, and we, I know in this House, send our condolences to her. Mr. Speaker, it's essential that we close the educational gap for the Mi'kmaq people in this province. And this agreement will help put us squarely on that path. It sets the tone and direction of a new relationship. For those who were in attendance at the ceremony, I'm sorry to have repeated myself, but I think it's very important to make note of the significance of this signing. And it's also important to note the efforts made on this issue to date. We have already worked to improve outcomes and increase engagement through a number of initiatives, including collaboration on a new grade 8 Mi'kmaq language curriculum. There is also a grade 11 online Mi'kmaq language course. There is an interactive dictionary project, and through the tripartite forum, a longitudinal study on Mi'kmaq language, which is being led by MK and McGill University. There have been steps taken to develop a framework for joint curriculum work that will not only benefit Mi'kmaq students, but all students who will be exposed to the Mi'kmaq culture. And a new grade 6 science textbook is another example of that collaborative curriculum work. As there is at the end of each unit in the book, a section entitled A Conversation with an Elder, which brings the scientific knowledge of the Mi'kmaq to all Nova Scotian learners. Mr. Speaker, this agreement also establishes a fair and stable funding mechanism that will cover the cost of providing quality education programs. And prior to this agreement, Mr. Speaker, each of the bands in the province who had children enrolled in the public schools negotiated their own agreements, and they negotiated the amount of tuition for each student who would enroll. This new agreement is a blanket agreement for the province. There has been a rate established, negotiated by the MK, which will apply to all bands in the province. So you don't have a situation where one band has a $6,000 per child education system and another one has a $5,000 per child education system or an $8,000 per child education system. There is now an established tuition fee for all students who are paid for by the bands. Mr. Speaker, the signing Friday was also highlighted with some exceptional performances from Eastern Eagle, which is known around the world. It's a group of native drummers from the Indian Book Reserve who are known around the world, and with two wonderful fancy shawl dancers. And to have these amazing traditional performers take center stage in the Red Room of this House on this historic occasion was, I want to tell you, very moving, to say the least. Now, I might add that one of these dancers, Ashley Julian, is from Indian Brook, and she is studying at Dalhousie University. In her junior high years, this strong young woman took it upon herself to ask to have a Mi'kmaq instructor come into her junior high to aid in her educational experience. She's also the youth coordinator for the Atlantic Policy Congress of First Nation chiefs. The second dancer was Samantha Lewis, who comes from Lennox Island First Nation and PEI, and she is studying at the Community College in Halifax. And both of these young women are part of the Micmac Maliseet Atlantic Youth Group. They serve as wonderful role models for others, not only helping to keep important traditions alive, but by going forward with their post-secondary education and helping to effect change. They are obviously leaders in the making. Mr. Speaker, as I said at the outset, this announcement is not only good for Mi'kmaq learners in this province, but the improvements will benefit all Nova Scotians. It's a positive step forward, and on behalf of our entire government, I say thank you to all who made it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the honourable member from Hants East.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the minister for his comments. I have to say that it's a pleasure to be able to applaud the government on this initiative. I have the Indian Brook First Nations community in my constituency, and I'm in that community a fair bit. And I want to say that when I'm at Indian Brook, I recognize that the people there want the same things for their children that the people in any other community want. And I think it's important that for them, education is an important issue that they see to help their children and their families into the future. And along with that, they want some connection to tradition and the past that has brought their people to where they are. They'd like to have that recognized in their education of their children. And I want to let the minister know that as much as he got to be the person on the day to sign the agreement, that he does deserve some credit, I think, even though he was acting minister. But he was the minister at the time, I think, when most of this initiative was instituted. And I kind of would say that I'm thinking that the Micmac Education Act actually was a way to enter into this agreement, that piece of legislation. And if I have the date right, it's 1998. And so there may have been, I think, some work by the previous Liberal government, I would assume, considering the date of that bill. But the minister may want to stand and correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong on that. So yeah, I agree with the comment I just heard that in what I had read, it looked like it was, the initial work was 1997. So I think there are some congratulations that can go around on all sides of the House. Well, I shouldn't say all sides of the House. I guess New Democrats weren't involved in that if the Liberals and the Conservatives were, since they were the governments. But I really would have appreciated, I think, a little more information prior to Friday on this initiative. But I'm very pleased to see where it has gone. And I'm pleased that, and certainly for me, it's important that the First Nations community is pleased. I take a lot of direction that I get from them because I really rely on them to tell me what they deem to be the impacts on their community. So if they're happy with the direction that something's going, then I'm happy with that. Hear, hear. I think probably one of the most telling and maybe best comments of the day, and I'll quote Chief Deborah Robinson, who was the vice chair of the Mi'kmaq Kinamataway. This is an innovative education agreement between two governments that focuses on improving performance and accountability, cooperation, and increasing respect for language and culture. And I think that goes a long way to saying what they expect to get for their community out of this agreement. At some point in the future, it doesn't have to be today, I'm understanding this to be a memorandum of understanding, and so I'd like to know if I have that right, and the minister can correct me on that at some point, and just to know whether this is just a framework for to work with, or if there are actually nailed down standards that are in place based on this agreement. And I certainly know that it impacts tuition, that there's a standardized tuition, and that when it comes to financing, that the bands no longer have to deal individually with the school boards, and the minister, I think, has made that clear. But this agreement replaces all existing tuition agreements between school boards and the 10 native bands that make up the Kinamataway, and which acts as the voice of the Mi'kmaq education in the province. It secures a common tuition cost for 1,000 on-reserve Mi'kmaq students attending public schools, and previous to this agreement, not all bands paid the same rate, which I thought was kind of an interesting point. School boards will receive $6,100 in funding for every student during the first 3 years of this deal, and that is indexed to CPI, Mr. Speaker. So I'm not sure the final 2 years will be determined, but I guess that's based on whatever changes in cost may occur over that 3-year period. So they may want to have a relook at that and establish perhaps a different, more appropriate cost at that time. It allows school boards and bands to repair and foster relationships, as financial negotiations will be left to the government and the Mi'kmaq Kinamataway. So that's a section or a sector that those First Nation bands don't have to worry about negotiating with school boards. Chief Robinson also said that it's not just about money, but it's about student performance. I think that the emphasis on performance in education is paramount, and I know, Mr. Speaker, you were an educator, and I know that certainly in my experience at school, as a school teacher, you really hated to see decisions made that we thought were, at least I thought, were based purely on finances, and that the educational outcomes of that decision were not so heavily weighed. And I know that all boards and certainly when we're using taxpayers' money, trying to get consumers or get parents the best bang for their tax dollar in relation to the educational outcomes of their students is important. Whatever you're going to do, you have to have a way to pay for that. But certainly it's important to know and see that performance outcomes will be paramount, and it won't just be a dollar value that we look at. And in this case, those student performance hopefully will be enhanced by an expanded group of support workers for learners, new curriculum such as the grade 8 Mi'kmaq language material, grade 11 online courses, and grade 6 science, which includes a conversation with an elder at the end of each unit, and I think the minister stated that as well. The agreement also provides for formal reporting structure that will track achievement, attendance, and discipline, and more, which is important to both communities. I guess I had indicated earlier that this agreement didn't just start the other day, and I want to tell the minister and the acting minister and the minister that this is a very good step. I think that I would encourage them to continue along similar paths, to keep an open dialogue with the First Nations community. I know from my experience teaching at Hanseys Rural High, there's significant part of our population there was First Nations from the Indian Brook First Nation community. Very talented, intelligent group of students. I think their observations and their dedication to their work was well seen in our school. Matter of fact, the minister may not have known, but Eastern Eagles, the drumming group that was present, and he mentioned Ashley Julian as well, being from Indian Brook. But there was 3 gentlemen there, Greg Marr, Brian Knockwood, and Gary Knockwood, who were the drummers. Eastern Eagles is very well known throughout the First Nations community, and Greg Marr has the distinction of being a former student of mine. So I'm not sure if that improved his drumming, but and actually he's a counselor on the band council. So with those comments, I congratulate the minister. I encourage them to continue the good work with the First Nations community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and very pleased today to add some comments to late debate on what was a historic document and signing by government, and I certainly applaud the minister and the acting minister on that particular day. I was pleased to offer a public comment through the Chronicle Herald about the need for this direction, but I would have loved to have been in attendance for the event. However, a neighbor, a good friend, manager of the Annapolis County Exhibition, John Longley's funeral was on Friday afternoon, so prevented me from being here. But I do want to say that this formal agreement, an MOU, is indeed a signed, full working document that has to be adhered to. So I'm sure that that will be the case, and this five-year agreement replaces the existing tuition agreements, which was in fact an enlightening aspect that these were all individual agreements, and there were different amounts of money that were provided to the 10 bands across the 10-member bands and school boards across Nova Scotia. So this landmark document then will deal with student achievement, attendance, discipline, and a range of other cultural measures. And when we have a population group in our province that is growing substantially, in fact, it is one of the fastest growing groups, perhaps as the acting minister said, the only one. If we take a look across the 12 years of public education, and 50% of the Mi'kmaq community in Nova Scotia are under 25 years of age. So it is time that we give much greater attention, much greater resources and acknowledgement in the public school education to the Mi'kmaq community. And has already been alluded to, the off-reserve community will be beneficiaries of this agreement. There are a number of schools, for example, in the Annapolis Valley, Horton, Central Kings in particular, a few students sometimes at West Kings High School that have Mi'kmaq students. And for some time, outside of one high school course of Mi'kmaq studies, there's been really insufficient curriculum materials, and even perhaps cultural sensitivity to celebrate significant days in which their language, culture, and heritage could be acknowledged in the larger school community. So I think this agreement that will in fact hold schools accountable for money spent on educating their children will move perhaps one of the comments that was made on Friday by a young lady, one of the dancers, Ashley Julian, who was in fact in her school of East Hants, a real leader in asking that she have Mi'kmaq education and language available to her. So we need to move beyond the individual who is strong enough to ask the school system to support their place in the public school system. So this agreement now will make greater accountability and in fact can move down to small group and individual accommodation within the P to 12 system. So each student now will have a determined starting point of $6,100 that will be put in place with this agreement, and of course it will be updated as we go along in terms of the consumer price index. But this agreement, really needs to go, beyond funding, and hopefully, while that supports the fundamental pieces of having teachers, curriculum, and programs in place, hopefully, it will bring about an attitudinal shift as well. That these children have every rightful place to get a full education, because one of the staggering statistics when it was alluded to here today about the gap in high school graduation rates for Aboriginals and non-Aboriginals has actually grown in recent years. So I think the minister and the former minister who worked on this document going back to 1997, when in fact the Mi'kmaq Services Division was established in response to the recommendation of the Task Force on Mi'kmaq Education. So since that point, we've been making some progress, and I think this is the achievement of two governments, and I'm sure the official opposition, as they said today, supported this document. One of the people that made me, when I came to the House, and as late as last year, very much aware of the needs, was a school board member from the South Shore, a lady by the name of Marg Forbes, who spoke passionately about the need for greater Mi'kmaq education. And so she certainly challenged me, and I remember writing the minister last year, and I had excellent support in our caucus, because one of our education researchers, Ryan Francis, was a Mi'kmaq from New Brunswick. So I was able to point out some of the deficiencies that we had in public education around this particular area. So a number of people and a number of stakeholders, but none more important than the Mi'kmaq community themselves, who have challenged us to respond to more favorable opportunity. We all know that a high school diploma is pretty well a given point for education in Canadian society. Without a high school education, opportunities become so narrow and so limited, and the statistics around the Aboriginal community are staggeringly, gripping for us all, because barely 60% complete high school, compared to 90% of the general population. So when we talk about other societal problems and issues with the Aboriginal community, without a sound education, they are indeed off to a very, very poor start. So we need to make sure that the funding put forward improves high school graduation rates among Aboriginal students, and if that comes down to much greater individual support through EAs, through having Mi'kmaq elders and mentors come into the school system. Well, I think that open door approach needs to be established, as well as people from the Mi'kmaq community, as we know in Nova Scotia, who are having very, very successful careers. They need to be brought into the public school education system as models, and that will inspire these people and hopefully cause the public school education to respond as fully as possible to making sure that, in fact, this document becomes a living, real way of moving Mi'kmaq education forward. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I take my place.
Thank you. The time allotted for debate this evening has now expired. I would like to thank all the honourable members for having taken part in tonight's late debate. The motion for adjournment was made earlier. The House will rise to sit again tomorrow at 12 noon.